Scary Stories, Part 1. It happened in 2017 in a small cemetery somewhere in upstate New York. I was 29 at the time. I had come to clean up my uncle's grave. He had died in 2014. The cemetery is old, neglected, almost forgotten. Cracked headstones, tall weeds, gravel paths broken after rains. I had to leave the car at the entrance and walk with bags, gloves, and a small rake. I also grabbed his favorite candy bars. He loved Reese's. Not far from his plot, literally a few meters away, was a girl's grave, 17 years old. Apparently, no one had visited her for a long time. Grass above her knees, a dirty tombstone, no flowers or memorabilia. I felt uncomfortable, such a young age and complete oblivion. I tidied up her place, cleaned up the grass, wiped the stove, put a couple of candies. Then I went back to my uncle, took out a cigarette, he smoked Marlboro, and put it next to the monument. About 10 minutes later, as I was putting everything away, I suddenly felt as if someone was watching. I stood in silence, no birds, no people, just the wind. The feeling grew stronger, became almost physical. I looked around, no one, just graves all around. Suddenly there was a sharp crack. I jerked and saw a girl in a tattered red dress standing by the grave of the 17-year-old. She had a strange face, as if blurred, unnaturally swollen legs and dirty bare feet. I turned around and rushed to the car, breaking fences, stumbling, not looking back. I reached the car in sweat, with my heart pounding frantically. The next day, I decided to come back to pick up the rakes and gloves I had left behind. For a long time, I couldn't bring myself to do it, but finally I came. They weren't there. I looked around and saw the rake and gloves lying neatly inside the fence of the girl. I froze. I walked over and took the things, not knowing what to think. And that night I had a dream. I'm standing in some old apartment. All the furnishings are from the mid-60s. Floral wallpaper, a TV with twiddles, an old lamp with fringe. On the sofa sits she, the same girl, in a red dress, with neat hair and lacquered shoes. She is holding a Good Housekeeping magazine from 1965. She stares into it, then looks up and says, "I'm sorry I startled you. I didn't mean to, but I'll wait for you again." I woke up shivering and never went back there again. After that dream, I couldn't sleep well for 2 weeks. I felt like someone was watching me, especially in the mirrors. A couple of times I caught my reflection with a delay, as if it were moving a little later than I was. One night, walking past the bathroom, I heard someone crying quietly. Thought it was the neighbors, but the sound was too close. Opened the door, silence. The lights flickered, but I didn't pay attention. A month later, I had to go to that neighborhood again. My friend's father had died, and the funeral was in a neighboring suburb. On the way back, I accidentally took a wrong turn and ended up near that very cemetery. It was evening, the sun was setting, and like an idiot, I decided, why don't I just stop by for a minute? I wanted to make sure everything was okay, that it was just a dream, a stress, a mind game. I walked over to my uncle's grave. Everything was calm. The girl had a fresh flower on her grave. One. A white lily. Neither withered nor dusty. Like someone had just put it there. No one around. I turned around, about to leave, but suddenly I heard a voice right behind me. Very close. Quiet, feminine, almost a whisper. "You're here." I turned around, no one. Only the wind slipped down my neck. After that, I began to notice strange coincidences. On the radio, songs about coming back, about forgiveness. At the cafe, the waitress put a check in front of me that said, "See you again soon." There was a red hairband lying in the back seat of my car one day. I live alone. The car is locked with an alarm. And now every night I dream about her voice. It's calling me. Sometimes I wake up feeling like I didn't sleep alone. The blanket's moved. The blanket is on the floor. There's a faint smell of old perfume in the air, like from my grandmother's jewelry box. I don't know what she's waiting for, but I know one thing, she's not finished. I decided to return to the cemetery to deal with this nightmare. The girl's grave was haunting me, and I was sure her spirit wouldn't rest unless I cleaned it up. I arrived late at night when all was quiet. Only a fog hung over the cemetery, and the air was saturated with a strange chill. I approached her grave and froze. The gloves and rake were there again, where she had stood. Then I heard footsteps behind me. Turning around, I saw nothing, but I felt something pulling me toward the empty grave. and suddenly she appeared. The same girl in the red dress with the distorted face. She didn't move, just stood there, and her eyes, black as night, looked right at me. I took a step back and felt something creak under my feet. When I looked down, I noticed that the ground around me had started to fail, as if a crack had formed under my feet. Suddenly, a cold hand grabbed my wrist and pulled with such force that I almost passed out. I tried to break free, but her cold stare hit me in the face. I started to scream, but it was useless. I felt the ground engulfing me. For a moment, I thought I saw her, with a smile, disappear into the mist, and her voice whispered, "You're not going away." I cried out sharply and closed my eyes, but when I opened them I saw her again. Now she was right in front of me, holding something black and sticky in her hands, and before I realized what it was, she raised her hand sharply, and darkness engulfed everything around her. I never came home again, and no one saw me again. I lived in a small town where everyone knew each other. One evening, just outside the city limits, I found an old abandoned shack. The locals said that no one had lived in it for a long time and it was not a nice place in general. But I was young and curious, so I decided to check out what was inside. The door was open and I walked in. It was dark and damp inside. I noticed that there were old, dusty things in the corner, a few boxes, old furniture. But what caught my eye, there was a picture hanging on the wall in the corner. On it was a family, a husband, a wife, and 2 children. The faces were a little distorted, like old snapshots, but something about their eyes really shook me. They were looking right at me. I crouched down to get a closer look at her. At that moment, I heard footsteps outside. I froze. I thought someone had come, but I looked out the window and saw no one. Strange, I thought, because I was sure it was not the wind, but someone's footsteps. I decided I was wrong and continued to look around the room. Suddenly, I heard a scraping sound as if someone was pulling something across the floor. I looked around, and that's when I noticed that one of the boxes had started to move. I stepped closer, my heart pounding in my chest. I lifted the lid, and behind it was an empty box, but there was someone inside. I didn't immediately realize what it was. The feeling that I was being watched never left me, and my whole body tensed up. There was a knock on the door. I turned around slowly. It was empty, but suddenly the light began to dim and the air felt thick and cold. I realized something was wrong and decided to leave. But just as I turned toward the door, it slammed shut. I was overcome with terror. I ran to the window, but it wouldn't open either. And then I heard a voice. A whisper. A woman's voice that didn't come from outside, but from inside my head. "You're not leaving." At that moment, the entire room filled with the acrid smell of old mold. I tried to find a way out, but every window, every door was closed as if someone had locked me inside. Then I heard rustling behind me. Turning around, I saw hands slowly begin to crawl out of the box. They were reaching for me. Not knowing what to do, I rushed to the corner. My heart was pounding so hard I couldn't breathe. Just when I thought I was about to lose my mind, I heard a sound. The doors of the hut opened and I ran out into the street, even though my legs wouldn't obey me. When I looked back, the house was standing as if nothing had happened. I ran through the woods for a few more minutes, not knowing what was happening to me. Someone will always be watching you anyway. You thought you could get away? Her voice sounded like a whisper of wind, but it went straight to my head, making my skin go cold. I felt my legs go under. But something inside me was telling me that if I didn't move now, if I didn't try to get out, it would end here and now. I turned sharply and rushed toward the exit, but immediately felt something invisible grab my back. I fell to the ground, my eyes went dark in front of me, and there was only a muffled sound like echoing laughter in my ears. "You're not leaving until you bring me what I want." Her voice now sounded like she was standing right behind me. I realized that it was impossible to just leave in this place. Everything here was connected to what I'd done, to what I'd found. And if I didn't fulfill her demands, I would stay in this nightmare forever. I couldn't believe what was happening, but I couldn't give up on this assignment either. Something in her voice kept me moving forward, searching. I got up and walked, not knowing where, but knowing one thing: I wasn't alone. She was watching my every move, and every step was like my last. I found myself in a hall surrounded by mirrors. All the reflections were distorted and I could see my face in each one, but each time it was different. In one mirror I looked mad, in another I looked as blank as the shadow itself. I went to the largest mirror and saw her, a woman standing behind me. In her hands was some ancient object, a small box, locked shut. "Give me what you owe me." Her voice was no longer a whisper at all now, it was threatening, harsh. And I realized what had to be done. But as soon as I reached out for the box, she disappeared. Instead, I heard a sharp sound and felt something pierce my chest. I turned around and saw that all the mirrors now reflected my face, but with horror. I stood in the center of the hall, and around me there were more and more reflections. And in each of them I saw myself slowly disappearing, turning into nothingness. Suddenly, I was gripped by fear, and I realized I couldn't get out. This place is my hell. I had become a part of it, its soulless shadow that would be here forever. And all I did was step into a place from which there was no escape.
Hey, like and subscribe to follow our new videos.